Blaine, can you do some name dropping on some of the famous Toronto clubs that you played?
Well, let me think. I guess the Alma Combo is the one that most people know about. I played there a couple of times with some people, and was lucky enough to share the stage with Amy Sky and Alan Frew from Glass Tiger. There was also Rich Dodson from a group called the Stampeders that some people might have remembered. I've also played in the Cadillac Lounge. We did a Jerry Lee night at that place, and that went over really well. Played in Graffitis and other places that a lot of people drop into. A few other pubs in the area that some people might have remembered. Stonecutter's Lounge, which I think was made famous in a rock and roll song by it was Tom Cochrane, if I remember. I've also played with Ralph Cole, Lighthouse. We've jammed a few times. Shared a few licks with one of the judges of Canadian Idol, Zach Werner, who was an interesting guy. I knew him before he was doing that show.
Is that just a shtick, or is he that much of a prick?
Well,
I hate him.
he's an interesting guy. He's a very nice man. But I mean, he was a guy who went through the rock and roll mill and got to the point where they told him basically, look, you're not going to be a big star. And his shtick is now he's letting other people know if he thinks they will be a big star or if not. And he's just very blunt, and mind you, he's doing pretty well. He's pretty well known now compared to what he was when he was playing rock and roll, so you can't argue with success.
Blaine, can you tell me some of your funny gig stories, both low points and high points?
Well, I think one of the stories that I don't know anybody, even the professionals from the old band, who beat this story. But one of our first gigs with the Flashback band was to play at a nudist resort, naturist resort as they call it, but basically it's a resort of naked people. We had to entertain them and also be exposed to them. We did not play naked, although we were invited to, but I'm not plugging into equipment and then playing naked on a stage nights. And so we had the opportunity to try to remember everything we were playing while watching all these naked people jumping around and dancing up and down. And as much as you may think this might be really titillating, it's sort of like looking at a subway stop full of people naked. That's about the average naturist. So when they were dancing around, I don't know what was worse, the fast dancing or the slow dancing. But we did that for actually a few years, and it got us a lot of interesting comments. But it was fun. It was fun.
Possibly the importance of the home studio to an independent musician nowadays.
I think they are the best device. It used to be that you would have to spend thousands of dollars for some of the mixing equipment and effects and track devices that you can record with now. Now for a few $100s you can have all that in your house, and I am taking advantage of that and am putting together my own material. I originally did it for the purpose of playing it for my band so we could perhaps do some of my original material, but I found that it's a really interesting way of getting feedback. You put together your own songs, which I know other people are doing on the internet radio, and you can post them up for other people to listen to, other musicians, other people interested in your music, and they will tell you and send you messages how they like it. You can tell by what the plays are, which ones are the most popular, and I think that it's a great way to get your word out without having to be you don't have to be a 21-year-old fashion model to be in music. You can put your music out and let it make the decision as to how you're received by the public.
Now, many people think being a musician is rather glamorous, but it could be a hazard to one's health. Am I out of line there? Or
Yeah,
with being rough?
We played a few rough places. We played this one place that is actually still going in Guelph, believe it or not. It's called the Diplomat Hotel is the name of it. They call it the Dip, the infamous Dip. And it's one of the places where they didn't put up chicken wire because somebody would probably steal it. But it's so rough in that place. We would rarely get out of there without seeing a fight happen sometime during the night. And I remember this one particular night where two girls got into it, and they literally went from one end of the bar room to the other. I had a tower speaker. In those days we were using tower speakers. I had a tower speaker in front of me, and I was hanging on to it to keep it from being tipped over, but also so that in case they threw a chair and I had something to protect myself. They went all the way through the bar room, onto the pool table, and right out the back door. It was the wildest thing I ever saw, but it always happened in those places. Something would happen during the night, and if you were playing, you just kept playing, and if you weren't playing, you just waited till it was over and let the bar people take care of it.
Blaine, what are your musical influences?
Well, if anybody's heard me, they know I sound somewhat like Jerry Lee Lewis, and he was a big influence on me. But there's other people too. Jane Vasey, who played with the Downchild Blues Band, she passed away back in the 80s. I met her in the late 70s and got a chance to talk to her about playing, and if anybody knows the history of that band, they were the influence of the Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi for the Blues Brothers.
Tell me about your experience meeting Robert Gordon.
Robert Gordon, he was at the Cadillac Lounge playing, and I went to see him, and he did a good show. And then they said afterwards, oh, if you stay around, Robert's going to come down. So I thought, oh, okay. So I stuck around. He came down and with his band, and we were talking away. And he signed a CD for me, and he seemed a little. Didn't seem quite the same guy as when he was getting his big hits back in the old days. But I guess all those years on the road. They were telling me about how when he was playing with Danny Gatton. Danny Gatton used to have a...
who committed suicide.
Yeah, that's right. But he was a great Telecaster player. But he had a he had a suicide switch on his amplifier. And they said if he ever got to the point where he just didn't want to play anymore, or he decided he'd had enough, he could hit this switch on his guitar, and it literally short-circuited out his amplifier and would blow half the stage out at the same time. So if he ever got into a mess where he thought maybe he was a little bit over his head, I don't know where, but I thought that was an interesting story.
What do you think of the internet radio?
I think it's great. I think it's for people who want to put their work up on the site, just for people to listen to, other musicians. I think it's great, and I think it's a terrific way to get your name out. People seem to be all worried about piracy and so on, but you know what? If you want to put a demonstrator song out, what better way to get a worldwide audience than to put it on the internet radio? So I'm all for it.